Today's recording is a break from the F-Off fund that we had been discussing at the previous episode. And that's because I saw an example of something that I've been preaching about on the podcast. And I saw it done tastefully well, given the circumstances. And I figured I'd share with you guys, so excuse me, about how you ought to take the principles, ideas, and frameworks that we discuss over here on the podcast and how you ought to apply it to your own personal context, to your sense of style, and according to the relationship and whatever context that are going on, depending on who it is that you're talking to. So if you are a long-term listener of the podcast, you know that I preach it time and time again, that one of the areas where we need to pick up our game is this whole thing of asking for the commitment. Because you'll find that the average wedding photographer or wedding planner or videographer goes for the meeting, they make a presentation, and then they just leave things as it is, and then the bride or the groom ends up saying, let me think about it. Sometimes it's the wedding planner or the wedding professional who says, here are all the facts and figures, here's everything. Why don't you take time to think about it and let's hook up some other time? And then the bride says, oh yeah, sure. And that's just normal because the average person doesn't like making decisions. I mean, people had a choice, and some things could be pushed off indefinitely with no consequence. They would keep on pushing things off indefinitely. So the thing is, we have to take the initiative because we are the professionals, and we have to learn how to ask for the commitment to get that person to take the next step. Now, one of the formulas that I have given over here on the podcast in the past has been a phrase like, and so the next step is to confirm your date. We need a payment for the amount of A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3. So that's a formula that I've put out here time and time again because I think it's easy to remember, it's easy to say. Although I have always pointed it out that you don't have to make it sound stuffy and formal. Assuming you think I sound stuffy and formal, you don't have to use my own voice. You can use your own words. And so I was hanging out with someone recently. Well, not hanging out with, I was just around. Because when you start paying attention to personal sales, personal selling and selling technique and things like that, you start noticing little things in other business people and how they embody all these principles that we talk about. So I was just hanging around. And this guy is talking to someone else, and they've gotten to that critical point where they've looked at everything. They have discussed everything. And was about car repairs. So they've discussed everything, the make of the car, the model of the car, the dents, the things that have to be repaired, where the paint has to go, what needs to be swapped out, and every single thing. And then they get to that final point. And then the auto dealer just said casually, so when are you going to send the bar? And then the conversation just moved on. Well, in this case, bar meaning money. I'm not sure what the younger generation use for money these days, but bar is an expression that you find people maybe in, people, Nigerians, let's say 35, 40 and above. It's an expression that they would use, bar, B-A-R. Maybe like it comes from golden bars. I have no idea, but it's something that people my age would say. So the guy just said casually, when are you sending the bar? And then the conversation moved on. So that's an example of how you can ask for the commitment without sounding formulaic and just keeping it casual and cool and using expressions that are native to you. Because if it were me, perhaps given that context, if he had said, okay, and what we need next is a payment of so and so to confirm, that might have sounded too formal. And so two guys just chatting, he just says casually, when are you sending the bar? So that's it, pretty much. We need to find ways to ask for the commitment in ways that sound comfortable to us and amenable to our own personality. So it doesn't sound forced and it doesn't sound stifled. But we need to learn how to ask for that commitment, because if you go there, you make the presentation, like in this case, you show everything. This is the car, this is the make, this is the model. There are 5 dents here. two dents here, panel beating here, spray painting here, swapping this out, changing that out. And then you just say, why don't you take some time and think about it? The other person will say, oh yeah, sure, let me think about it. And of course, if you've been in business for any length of time, you know that sometimes thinking about it is a recipe for disaster. He might go home, they think about it, someone comes up with another offer that he thinks is better. All kinds of things can happen, especially for those of us in the wedding space. It's not unusual for a wedding photographer, for instance, to have the conversation with the bride and the groom. And why don't you take some time to think about it? And they do that. And then you call them up next week, Friday. And then she says, well, my uncle said he wants to gift us photography. And that's it. You've lost the deal. But if you had tried to gain the commitment at that meeting, so what we need to move forward, what we need to confirm your date is a payment for so and so, or when are you sending the bar, you could have quickly got to any other serious objections or any serious apprehensions that the bride and groom may have had. So if you had gone straight to when are you sending the bar, at that point, they would have been upfront like, well, there's this thing, one of my uncles from Momsy's side, he's saying that, blah, 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 blah. And then at that point, you have the information that you need to make a secondary play to say, oh, cool. In that case, why don't you hook me up with uncle so that we'll have the payment conversation with him? Or when is uncle going to be in town so that we have a meeting with him? Or whatever it is that you decide is the most appropriate response. But we have to be able to be confident enough to try and secure the commitment. So you don't always have to say, like I've been preaching on the podcast, that the next step is 1, 2, 3 to confirm 4, 5, 6. It can just be something as simple as, so when are you sending the bar? Whatever that feels comfortable to you, so long as you ask. Because also in the car space, I've also seen people say, like for tires, for instance, the last place that I went to get brand new tires. So we had spoken, I stood there, quiet. I was thinking things over with the amount and maybe the number of tires that I'll need to buy. And then the guy just asked casually, is that your car? And then I said, yes. And then he just said, Chukudi, bring 2. And then, of course, I know how to say, whoa. I said, relax now, we're not done. But you see, that was his own way of trying to secure the commitment. He just asked, is that your car? I said, yes. Chukudi, bring 2. That pushes the conversation along. So that if I'm a serious buyer, we get to it. If I'm not, and I say serious buyer in quote, because I believe that we shouldn't wait for serious buyers. We're the ones who have to be serious ourselves. So if I'm a serious buyer, we move along. If I'm not, we get to whatever my objections, whatever my concerns are. And then I have also seen, also in the car space, where someone said, I'll just make up a name. So, not like the guy's name was Chukudi. So, where the guy said, no, how did it go again? Okay, we had spoken about, I think it was car batteries. Yeah, the person was talking about car batteries. I just happened to be around. And they spoke, and they get to that point where the guy is there, is deep in thought and thinking. And so the battery sales guy just simply asked, may I package them? Translation, should I package it? That's also another way of asking for the commitment. So, whatever way that works for you, may I package them? When are you sending the bar? Where is your car? Chukudi, bring 2. Whatever it is, just look for a way to ask for the commitment so that we can move the sales process along and we don't get stuck endlessly in that circle of, let me think about it, I'm thinking about it, I want to talk to Kemi, I want to talk to Kunle, my uncle said this, my father said this. Ask for the commitment. So thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based sales consultant and event media professional, Tavishima Ayede. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.